You hear stories, they get passed around. Sometimes a story sounds so good, so perfect, that it has to be true. It fits the person, it fits the moment. And this is one of those stories, the king of rock and roll, trapped in a movie he didn't want to make, singing a song he couldn't stand. He hears it on the radio, he gets angry, he tells his guys, go out. Buy every copy you can find. I don't ever want to hear that thing again. It's a great story. It shows an artist with pride, an artist fighting back against the machine that was using him. It shows the man behind the legend, a man with feelings and a sense of his own dignity. The story makes sense, but is it true? Specifically, is it true about this one song? The one with the goofy dance from the Beach Party movie. Let's back up a little. To understand the song, you have to understand the time. We're talking about the mid-1960s. And Elvis had been the biggest thing in the world. He came back from the army in 1960, a hero. He was still the king. But the world was changing, fast. In 1964, the Beatles landed in America. Everything shifted. The music, the fashion, the whole attitude. The British invasion was on. And while all this was happening, Elvis was in Hollywood. His manager, Colonel Tom Parker, had a plan. The plan was simple: make movies. The movies would sell tickets. They would also sell soundtracks. Well, it was a closed loop of income. No touring, which was risky and tiring. Just a steady, predictable flow of cash. And for a while it worked. The movies made money. The albums sold. The quality started to slip. Badly. The formula was always the same. Elvis plays a character with a cool job. A race car driver, a fisherman, a pilot. He gets into some trouble, usually over a girl. He sings a handful of songs. In the end, he gets the girl and everything works out. The scripts were weak, the budgets were low, and the songs were often the worst part. These weren't the raw, dangerous songs that made him famous. This wasn't Heartbreak Hotel or Jailhouse Rock. The songs were written to fit the ridiculous plots. They were written to be fun, light, and forgettable. They were products, not art. And Elvis knew it. He was a smart man. He was a true musician. He grew up on blues and gospel music. He had soul. And he was being forced to sing songs that had none. He started to hate it. His friends, the guys in his inner circle, they all said so. He would get the scripts and just toss them aside. He'd see the song titles and just shake his head. He was a professional, so he did his job. He went to the studio, he sang the lines. He learned the choreography. But his heart wasn't in it. You can see it in his eyes in some of those movies. He looks bored. He looks trapped. He was making millions of dollars, but he was artistically miserable. He was in a golden cage. Think about the contrast. The Beatles were writing Eleanor Rigby. Bob Dylan was writing Like a Rolling Stone. The Rolling Stones were recording I Can't Get No Satisfaction. These were songs that changed culture. They talked about real life, real feelings. And Elvis was in Hollywood on a fake beach, surrounded by actors in bikinis singing about. It was called Girl Happy. Elvis plays a singer in a rock and roll band. He's hired by a Chicago gangster to secretly chaperone his daughter on her spring break trip to Fort Lauderdale. It's a silly plot, and it's an excuse for a lot of beach scenes. And in one of those scenes, Elvis has to introduce a new dance craze. The song itself is frantic. It's got a fast beat, horns, and backup singers shouting. The lyrics are nonsense. They're just instructions for a dance. Grab your barefoot baby by the hand. Wiggle and a wobble. It's pure fluff. It was designed to be a novelty hit, something kids could dance to at a sock hop. It's not a terrible song, in a vacuum. It's catchy, but it's not an Elvis Presley song. It's an assembly line product with his voice on it. He recorded it in June 1964. He went into the studio, did his part, and moved on. The musicians on the track were pros, the best in Los Angeles, sure, but they were just doing a job. Everyone was. The goal wasn't to create a classic. The goal was to fill a 2-minute slot in a movie. The song was released as a single. It did okay. It made it to number 21 on the Billboard charts. People bought it. They listened to it. They did the dance. So here's where the legend comes in. The story goes that Elvis was back home in Memphis driving his car. He had the radio on. And this song comes on, his song. He hears the horns, the goofy lyrics, and he just snaps. He's embarrassed. He's angry. This isn't who he is. This isn't the music he wants to make. This is the sound of his career going down the drain. He pulls over, or he gets back to his house, and he gives the order. Buy them all. It's a powerful image. The king trying to erase a piece of his own history. Trying to use his money to buy back his artistic soul. But let's think about it practically. Could he have actually done it? No. It would have been impossible. By the time a song is a hit on the radio, there are hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of copies out there. They're in record stores in every city and town in America. They're in warehouses. They're in jukeboxes. You couldn't just buy them all. It's a logistical nightmare. You'd spend a fortune, and you'd barely make a dent. The record company would just press more. So the literal story probably isn't true. It's an exaggeration. But that doesn't mean it's completely false. The feeling behind the story is real. The frustration was real. Elvis absolutely hated many of the songs he was forced to sing in the 60s. He complained about them constantly to his friends. He felt like a joke. This is where things get a little complicated, because the story about buying up all the records is a real Elvis legend. It's one of the most famous stories people tell about him, but it's usually attached to a different song. A song that is, believe it or not, even worse. 2 years later, in 1967, Elvis made a movie called Double Trouble. By this point, things had gone from bad to worse. The movies were making less money. The music scene had left him even further behind. He was in a creative freefall, and in this movie he had to sing Old MacDonald. Yes, the nursery rhyme. He sings it on a bus, surrounded by a group of adoring women, complete with all the animal sounds. It's probably the lowest point of his entire recorded career. It's painful to watch. It's the king of rock and roll, the man who changed the world, reduced to singing a children's song for a paycheck. And that is the song most people point to when they tell the record-buying story. The legend is that he heard Old MacDonald on the radio and lost his mind. And it's more believable. That song wasn't just a silly dance number, it was a complete humiliation. It was a symbol of everything that had gone wrong. So why do people sometimes attach the story to the earlier beach song? It's probably a case of memory getting fuzzy over time. People remember the general feeling of the era. They remember the bad movie songs. They remember the legend about him wanting to buy up the record. And they mash it all together. The beach song is a perfect stand-in for all the other bad songs. It represents the entire movie year's problem. It's a silly commercial song from a silly commercial movie. It fits the narrative perfectly, even if the specific detail is wrong. The truth isn't that he tried to buy all the copies of one specific song. The truth is that he probably wished he could have bought up and destroyed the master tapes for half the music he made between 1961 and 1968. He was an artist in prison, and these songs were his uniform. The real story isn't about him trying to erase the past. It's about how he finally broke out and reclaimed his future. By 1968, he'd had enough. He was offered a television special. The Colonel wanted it to be a cozy Christmas show, with Elvis in a tuxedo singing carols. Safe. Predictable. More of the same. But Elvis, with the encouragement of the show's producer Steve Binder, said no. He had a different idea. He wanted to remind people who he was. He put on a black leather suit. He stood on a small stage, surrounded by a live audience. He wasn't acting. He wasn't playing a character, he was just Elvis. He snarled, he sweated, he played the guitar, and he sang with a power and a passion that no one had seen from him in years. He sang the blues, he sang rock and roll, he sang with his original band members. He looked dangerous again. He looked alive again. That 1968 comeback special was him symbolically buying up all the copies of those bad movie songs. He wasn't using money, he was using his talent, he was using his soul. He was showing the world that the man who sang Hound Dog was still in there. He had just been buried under a pile of terrible scripts and silly songs. The special was a massive success. It relaunched his career. It led to him returning to live performances in Las Vegas. It led to him recording some of the best music of his life in Memphis, songs like Suspicious Minds and In the Ghetto. He escaped the Hollywood trap. He broke free from the formula. He became the king again, on his own terms. So, when you hear the story about Elvis trying to buy up all the copies of a song he hated, it tells you something true about him, even if the facts are a little off. It tells you that he cared. It tells you that deep down the artist was still fighting to get out. He knew the difference between a great song and a piece of garbage, and he hated being forced to sing garbage. The legend survives because it captures that struggle in one simple, powerful image. It's a modern folktale about art versus commerce, about a man trying to protect his own legacy from the people who were supposed to be protecting it for him. It's a story about a king who was tired of wearing a jester's hat. So, did Elvis try to buy all the copies of this specific song because he hated it? The song from Girl Happy? The one with the beach party and the silly dance? No. The evidence just isn't there. That story is almost certainly a myth, or a misremembered version of a legend about an even worse song. But the story itself tells a deeper truth about his frustration during those years. He was trapped, and he knew it. And maybe, just maybe, when he did hear that song on the radio, the one telling everyone to do the clam, he gripped the steering wheel a little tighter, shook his head, and wished for a moment that he could make it all just go away.